FNAF Fangames in 2023. It was dead. The fangame scene this year didn't have a lot. It's such a bummer too, because you'd think there'd be more notable fangames coming out around this time because of the FNAF movie being a huge success and bringing FNAF back into the mainstream, even more than Security Breach did. As well, there were the releases of both Ruin and Help Wanted 2, which were both critically acclaimed among the FNAF community. But no, the 5 fangames on this list, I'm telling you right now, are 5 of the only notable FNAF fangames to come out in 2023, with the only other 2 others being in the honorable mentions, so that's great. Anyway, yeah, welcome to my yearly tradition of counting down what I thought were the best fangames of the previous year. People like these videos, people don't, it's whatever. This list is purely all just my personal opinion. If you have an issue with this list, cool, I don't really care honestly. This is my video, man. Be sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell. Also become a channel member, totally optional, but it'd be appreciated if you did. Without further ado, let's dive right into the top 5 best Five Nights at Freddy's fangames of 2023. Mechanism is a FNAF fangame that was created by the FNAF YouTuber Animatronic, who makes pretty good content on her channel. She's somewhat inactive, but whenever she uploads, it's peak. Now, Mechanism is a top-down FNAF fangame with multiple levels in the form of nights where you're playing as Freddy and you must try to get the security guard who's located somewhere across the night's map. It serves as somewhat of a simulator fangame since you're playing as an animatronic trying to kill the guard, but for one of those, it's extremely fun. It's fun to dodge certain enemies, collecting the balloons is interesting for the player to do. The inclusion of Afton is also really enticing because of how much he can serve as a challenge because of how you need to try to get away from him while at the same time try to accomplish what you were trying to do already, that being to get the guard. Can I also say I just adore the sprites as well. The visuals are just amazing and it captures the feel of an old 80s top-down arcade game. It usually works for FNAF and this game is no exception. On top of that, with the 8-bit music that once again helps the arcade feel, the jump scare animation is goofy but in a fun and well animated way. All around, this game is pretty fun for it is basically a short game in scope. This just goes to show that YouTubers can make games and they can be pretty damn good. I know this fangame doesn't tie to Animatronic directly besides her being the one who made it, so it can be seen as its own thing. Overall, pretty fun fangame and a welcoming addition to my top 5. Oh boy, so I'm probably gonna get heat for even talking about this game, as a lot of people when they discuss the fangame releases of 2023, they just ignore this game, and I'll be honest, it's for a fair reason. The original game, with its extremely vile and disgusting contents and its story, plus its original developer, have really soiled the reputation of the series to many people in the community. So it's completely understandable that a remake of the game, even with the vile content from the original stripped out and being under a different developer, is a game people will actively choose not to support or even acknowledge. And while I'm not a fan of the newer developer for personal reasons as well as reasons that have been shared publicly by people, I will say that Dorminibus Remastered is a good game and I will be talking about it in this video. I personally separate creator and creation, so yeah. So Dorminibus Remastered is basically a remaster of Dorminibus from 2018. Like I said, the original is an extremely controversial fangame among the FNAF community due to how there's themes of child rape in the story, as well as the original developer, Nichi, being a straight up pedophile who's been exiled from the community ever since. Now what this remaster notably does is it removes the controversial contents of the original story and makes the story more in line with the original FNAF games, just having Garvey Wright being a sadistic killer and nothing else. I must say, I absolutely respect how such vile content was stripped from the story, and now, the story can actually be a good story with an interesting villain without the need of extreme edginess. The gameplay has seen a massive improvement with how there's new characters added to spice up the gameplay and makes it so much more fun. Some of these characters are even scrapped characters from the original game. Additionally, the gameplay feels less like a mess and feels more complete. Gameplay mechanics make more sense in the remaster because it feels like actual gameplay this time and not things just mixed together to make it seem like gameplay. I just had a more fun and genuine experience with the gameplay. The visuals have seen much improvement too. The models feel much more professionally done and the atmosphere feels much more hellish but still terrifying. The sound design has remained good. It was one of the few things from the original game I actually liked, and I'm glad it carried over in the remaster. I wish the Cardboard Theater music track from the original carried over because of how much it made it seem like a Cardboard Theater, but all around it's just a nitpick, and it's a much better Cardboard Theater because of how it cuts that one part from the original. You know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I had a blast with this fangame. While it's justified to skip this game because of its very complicated past, if you were to check this game out, it's honestly a pretty fun experience. Solid remaster all around. My Pop Goes is another pretty cool and quaint FNAF fan game. This one being created by Kane Carter, the lead director of the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative's very own Pop Goes. This is pretty much a short fan game with 5 levels in the form of days. You need to satisfy Pop Goes the Weasel's hunger, thirst, and entertainment. You have to actively run around the tiny set to satisfy all 3 needs for the Weasel, and as you progress through the game, the days get more challenging. Day 5 is genuinely pretty hard, and it tests the player on the skills that they learned throughout the game. Beating the game is satisfying due to its ending, and there's even a teaser that teases to the future of Pop Goes. All around, a pretty solid short experience that goes to show what is to come of Pop Goes, and I wouldn't mind seeing more fun little games like this from Kane. A Bite at Freddy's was a FNAF fan game released by Garrett McKay, and if you know anything about him and his work in the fan game scene, he often makes FNAF fan games that stay very true to Scott Cawthon's style of FNAF. Basically, a Garrett McKay fan game is like a Scott Cawthon FNAF game, and that's why his games are usually pretty good. And this game is no exception. I just love the style and presentation of the game. I love how the animatronics have unique designs that not a lot of fan games decide to put the time into. Like, the animatronics look so genuinely unique and original, basically because of their costumes and everything. Usually Foxy would be a pirate in these games, but they turned him to some endearing nerd. I love it. The environments look pretty solid too. I like the lighting a lot, and it helps with making the atmosphere setting interesting for the player. The gameplay is also pretty fun. The combination of mechanics is very fun and offer a solid gameplay experience. I will admit that at some points it can feel a little slow. Like, there could be certain parts where I think the pacing of the gameplay can be improved on, but otherwise, each night is a growing challenge, and all around, it ends up still being pretty enjoyable. All around, this FNAF fan game is just unique. That's the word I would describe it. This game is also really silly in its tone and everything, but honestly, that's the main thing I really like about it. It doesn't take itself very seriously, whether that be the wacky gameplay or the goofy designs of the characters. It's just so silly in a fun way that I enjoy this fan game because of it, and due to that, it gets a spot on this very list. So here are the honorable mentions for this list. Now, both of these games I'm not really huge fans of, if I'm being 100% honest. One of them I think is straight up bad, and the other I think is just extremely mediocre. So I guess it'd be dishonorable mentions, I guess. The first of the two is the obvious one, The Return of the Bloody Knights. I straight up don't like this game. I've already explained it before, but essentially, I just think the gameplay is extremely flawed. There's a difficulty curve mid-game that makes no sense with nothing leading up to it, which makes it kind of fail as a challenge. Some of the visuals could be better, the story is extremely lacking, especially in its presentation, as in how the story is presented to the player. This game has been claimed by even its own developer to be a better version of FNAF 1, which I'm sorry, even if you're a fan of this game, you have to at least admit it's not that. The game fails to capture the charm FNAF 1 had, both the simple gameplay and the unsettling atmosphere. The animatronic designs are peak though due to how much they resemble FNAF 1 animatronic designs, and there's little references within the game that tie to FNAF, so it isn't all terrible. The other fan game in this section is Chica's Party World Rebaked. Now this one, it isn't bad per se, but it's extremely mid. The gameplay starts off extremely boring due to how easy the mechanics are, and then again, like with the Return of the Bloody Knights, there's a random difficulty curve that comes out of nowhere. There's also pre-night minigames which are not fun or engaging because there's no challenge or true gameplay. It's just you walking around either collecting shit or just doing something. It would have been better if there was a threat within these parts. The lore is also not very interesting enough to hold a player's attention, and while the camera's visuals look extremely wonky, the character designs are still pretty decent. Voice acting could be improved too. All around a very game. Now let's carry on to number 1. Yes, Playtime with Percy. Going into this fan game, I didn't know what to expect, but coming out of it, I had a blast, and this game may be a contender for one of my personal favorite FNAF fan games ever. Like, ever. For one, I just love the artistic direction for the game and just the art in general. I adore the style it's going for. It's not like Flumpty's where it tries to be mostly detailed but silly. No, it goes for a completely silly and simplistic style, and it's very unique when compared to other FNAF fan games of its kind. 2D fan games get somewhat of a bad rep because of games like designs of Sonic's, and the average find under the news section of the FNAF page on GameJolt where it looks like it was made in Scratch. Playtime with Percy, while having this silly and simplistic approach, is competent and professional looking still, while also being appealing, so there's that. Then there's the gameplay of the game. There's of course the main nights, which serve as a fun challenge as you progress through the game with all the unique mechanics within it. When formed together, it has the player focus and sorta has you on a rhythm in the most loose extent possible. Each character mechanic is integral to the challenge of the nights, which is good. I also like the unique progression, how it isn't a time thing, and it's like Pizzeria Simulator where you have to get tasks done. These tasks obviously being more playful, but still, it's cool. The post-night minigames are also pretty cool too. They do what Chica's Party World remake tried to do, but right and successful in my opinion, by having there be an active threat within them. My favorite part of the game though is the boss night. God damn, it's such a blast. I love the fake out, I love PAL, I love the gameplay. While it's hard, it's fair, and it has such a variety of different mechanics just like the main nights that it gets the player to focus on the gameplay, therefore creating a memorable experience. The ending is satisfying too, as it's somewhat powerful because of how much it establishes a connection with the protagonist and PAL. A lot of effort was put into this silly game, and for that, it's one of the best FNAF fan games I've ever played. There's just so much content within this game too, I heavily recommend it. It's an extremely fun game, worth your time, and it has a lot of hallmarks that make a really good FNAF fan game. Engaging gameplay, unique style and visuals and design, creativity in many forms, the amount of content, it's really good. Dare I say, amazing. And with that being said, that is why in my opinion, Playtime with Percy is the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game to come out in 2023. I hope this year in 2024 there's more FNAF fan games that will be released. I'm looking forward to each eventual release. I'm excited for this year for FNAF as a whole too. The 10-year anniversary is this year, so maybe something special will be cooked, maybe even the fan game scene. We'll see. There's just so many fan games I cannot wait to play, so yeah, pretty excited for this year for FNAF and even its fan games.